Heart Smart Home Cooking is brought to you by the Heart and Stroke Foundation of Manitoba, finding answers for life. Welcome to Heart Smart Home Cooking on Shaw TV. March is Nutrition Month, and today we are joined by Christine Hood of the Heart and Stroke Foundation of Manitoba. She's the nutrition manager at Heart and Stroke, and last year we made some great recipes with canola oil. We're going to be using canola oil again this year, but we're doing something a little different.
That's right. We are using canola oil again. We're making a new recipe today called Barley with caramelized vegetables. And this recipe is going to help us get those 7 to 10 servings of vegetables and fruit in that we strive for every day. We're using a lot of flavor in this recipe, but very little sodium.
Okay, and that's something that we should be trying to reduce on a daily basis within our meals, is that correct?
That's right. We get too much sodium in our diets, and that's a negative thing because of the impact it has on the risk for heart disease and stroke.
Okay, so we'll get back to the sodium discussion a little later, but let's get on with our recipe. And first thing we need to do is...
We're going to start with the barley. There's two parts to this recipe. There's the barley and then there's the vegetables with caramelized sauce. So we're going to start with the barley. Now barley is very easy to make, but it does have to cook for a while. So we're going to start by toasting 3/4 of a cup of barley in our 1 tablespoon of canola oil that's heated up over there on the stove. So the toasting of the barley is going to really bring out the flavor as well as slightly reduce the cooking time.
Okay.
Now barley is a grain. It adds fiber to our diet. It's going to cook in a similar way to rice by gradually absorbing the liquid. And it's very flavorful, and it's something to consider adding to your regular meal plans if you don't already. I know at our house it's something the kids really like now too.
Okay, now once we got this barley toasted, we would normally be cooking barley with a broth or some sort of canned soup broth, but we're going to try and reduce the sodium, I guess, and do it a little differently.
That's right. We are going to need to add about 4 cups of soup broth to this recipe, but as you said, canned soup, packaged soups can be very high in sodium. So we're going to get around that a couple of ways. One idea you can do is to use a homemade soup broth, which would normally be lower in sodium. You could use a reduced sodium broth, or you can do what we're going to do today, which is to combine a tablespoon of soup powder with about 4 cups of boiling water. And that's going to give you great flavor, but it's diluted, so it's going to be much, much lower in sodium. So we're just going to add that in there, and that's going to be added into our barley.
Now, you would wonder though, I mean, of course we're reducing the sodium here, but how does that change the flavor of the recipe?
That's a good question. We are going to still be getting a little bit of flavor from that. And we have to remember in a recipe like this, there's flavors coming from a lot of different directions. So by reducing the sodium just in that one ingredient, we're not really going to miss it at all.
Okay, so we just pour this in now?
So that's going to get poured in there, and that's going to sizzle a bit. Now that barley is going to have to cook for about 45 minutes. So a good tip for meal preparation is to prepare your barley the night before. That way, when you get to meal preparation time, that step has already been done.
So any concerns as this cooks up that we'll be burning the barley to the bottom of the pan or anything?
No, it should be fine. That soup broth should pull it up, and it should cook nicely. So we'd want to reduce the temperature there and just kind of let that simmer for about 40 minutes.
Okay, so moving on then, what do we need to do next?
Well, now that we've got our barley under control, we're going to move on to our vegetables. And we've got about a tablespoon of heart-healthy canola oil heated in the skillet over there. And we're going to get going with our vegetables.
Okay, so again, the canola oil, because it is better for us. And I guess opposed to a vegetable oil or butter, you want to use the canola oil.
That's right. Canola oil is a great choice. It's a heart-healthy oil. It's low in saturated fat. It's easy to use, versatile, local, and it's great for everyday cooking and baking. So we're going to add our onion in there and get that softened up, and then we'll have to get going with our vegetables here. We've got some red pepper over here, some zucchini, and some mushrooms that need to go in as well.
Okay, now as we mentioned earlier that we would get back to the sodium discussion, why do we need to reduce the sodium?
Well, we talk about getting too much salt in our diet. We talk about getting too much sodium. Sometimes there's a bit of confusion. Salt is a combination of sodium and chloride, and it's the sodium part that's a concern to our health because too much sodium can raise our blood pressure, and high blood pressure, as we know, is a main risk factor for heart disease and stroke.
So it's not just as easy as taking the salt shaker off the table.
You know, taking the salt shaker off the table is a good step, but we also know that nearly 80% of the sodium that we get comes from processed foods. So it's important to really look at the labels on food packages, make sure that you're choosing lower sodium foods, and when you're preparing foods in the kitchen, looking for alternative sources of flavor aside from all sodium-based flavors as well.
Okay, so once we get these vegetables cut up, we just put them in the skillet, and I guess we just have to let them heat up for a bit and soften?
Yeah, that's right. All of these vegetables are going to have to cook for a little bit longer. The mushrooms will have to reduce in size a little bit, and our garlic is going in there as well. You can see there's a lot of flavor going in here. And then those are going to have to soften a little bit before we add in our sauce ingredients, which we can actually do here in just a minute.
Now, as we mentioned before, we're not really going to miss that sodium because of the flavor of the vegetables and also the sauce. We're using a balsamic vinegar, which is quite flavorful.
That's right. We're using a balsamic vinegar, which is a great ingredient to keep around the house. It's great for sauces like this, and it's also great for salad dressings. And it's a very flavorful ingredient, but it has very little sodium. So other ideas of ingredients to keep around the house are things like lemon juice, fresh herbs and spices, garlic, onion, all these sorts of things are going to add a lot of flavor.
Okay.
So we're going to add in our balsamic vinegar as well as a tablespoon of brown sugar, and then that'll just kind of cook up for us.
Okay, so let's get into that. How much vinegar?
We need about 3 tablespoons of the balsamic vinegar, so we'll just...
You're the professional.
Yeah.
You can go ahead.
We'll let that go.
Well, it looks like our vegetables have softened up, Christine, and it smells really good. That balsamic vinegar just seems to give it a very good aroma.
It's got a great flavor. Those vegetables have softened up nicely, and you can see that that vinegar and brown sugar mixture has given a nice brown, sort of a caramelized look to the vegetables, and they look great.
Okay, so now we just need to plate our food. We've taken the barley off the heat and put it on our plate there.
That's right. The barley's here, and again, that's cooked for about 45 minutes or so, and so now it is ready to go as well with the vegetables.
Okay, so we turn our heat down here, and
Okay.
now we just start
Just going to
scooping
spoon
it
these
out.
over top of the barley, and looks great.
So again, canola oil and reduced sodium, so making this a heart healthy meal. Is this a part of a complete meal according to Canada's Food Guide?
Well, we've got the barley from the grains group of Canada's Food Guide, and we've got the vegetables from, of course, the vegetables and fruit group. So we could complete this meal by adding in some sort of a protein source, chicken or fish or beef, lentil, bean, something like that. And a nice glass of milk would finish off this meal for us.
If you want this recipe or many others, there's some bonus recipes available to you on the Quick and Healthy Recipes the Whole Family can enjoy cook booklet from the Heart and Stroke Foundation. You can download it from their website at www.heartandstroke.mb.ca, or you can phone to get a copy mailed out to you at 1-888-473-4636. Thanks a lot for your time.
Thank you.
This Heart Smart Home Cooking segment is made possible by the generous support from the Manitoba Canola Growers Association.